Welcome to my podcast, Actual Leigh. This is the continuation of last week's conversation. Let's dive right back in. I had a surgery on my backside for my butt, and I didn't know about the EDS, and I ended up having one of the complications that's seen in EDS patients, which is that I had severe bleeding
Oh,
after, and so I was basically bleeding from my butt, and I was like, I spent 2 weeks in pain. It's a surgery; it's not supposed to hurt very much. And I kept calling, and they're like, "Well, pain is normal." And then all of a sudden I felt better because whatever it was had ruptured. And I was then bleeding. And instead, you would think I'm bleeding a lot from a place I should go to the ER. No, I called. I called and I waited to talk to an after hours surgeon. And he was like, you should go to the ER. And then I went to the ER. I would not, I needed someone to give me permission because I was so terrified they were going to turn me away again.
yeah. And right. And if you don't have an Alec,
Yeah.
you're feeling miserable and you've been bleeding from your butt, which is,
Yeah. I
and
was like half a pint away or whatever from needing a transfusion. That was how
girl,
much. Yeah. It was that was a whole thing. That was like I don't usually talk like I haven't really talked about it because it was so like I had to wear
I'm
diapers
so sorry.
and they had like these really like attractive like 20 something nurses like changing men nurses
Oh,
changing my
yeah.
diaper, which is like whatever, but I hadn't been seen naked in like almost 20 years. So it like, and the diaper in my brain was like it was really
That,
uncomfortable. It made me cry, like,
yeah.
I'm not much of a crier, but I did cry because I was so embarrassed. Like it was a
I
lot.
had to come home with when after I gave birth to Rob, this I didn't know I had EDS then, obviously. Um, my bladder like got moved into a place it shouldn't be, kind of hyperextended away, and that screwed it. My
Yeah.
bladder has not been the same since I gave birth the first time. And I just remember I kept telling them I couldn't pee. And they're like, well, go try. And I'm like, I can't. And they're like, well, you have to. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I can't. Like what don't can you
Right.
you have a tube, get a tube and drink. Like I'm in pain. I can feel that I have to pee and I've been sitting on a
It's not
toilet.
coming out. Right.
So then they drained me. They didn't put a Foley in. So then the next morning I still couldn't pee again. And my doctor was like, he came in to check on me and he's like, how's it doing? I was like, oh, I couldn't sleep all night. And he was like, what is going, like, he was pretty concerned.
Yeah.
But I ended up having, because they didn't put a Foley in me right away and just left me kind of dealing with whatever, I think that actually made it worse. So then
Right.
when I went home with a cath bag strapped on my leg, so like my picture of me in the wheelchair, like I have like a bag of hot pee on my leg. But it
So
was nice. It was nice for like recovery because I didn't have to like get up to pee.
that's
And then
true.
Alec and I joked like I drained the bag while he was peeing. I was like, "Look, we're crossing the streams," and he is like, "Oh my God, did you take some like?"
Dude, I mean, the whole peeing after giving birth thing is a whole, I mean, you're like, is are my insides gonna fall out? Like, I mean, it feels crazy down there after you give birth. So I
Yeah, yeah. And there were so many things people don't tell you. Like no one told me to expect to poop on the table.
yeah. They
You
told
might
me
you might
they
poop. No one told me
yeah.
that.
I kept asking, did I poop yet? It's like,
I was
did I
so
poop?
like I didn't really know about it till after I did it, and then I was like, oh my
I
God, my
read like I
need poop.
read books for midwives. That book, What to Expect When You're Expecting? It
I saw
stressed
that
me
book and it
out.
looked stupid. Like it annoyed me. Something on the cover annoyed me. I was like,
Yeah,
that
it was somebody gave it to me and I started reading. I got really upset. And when I went to my doctor, I told her how upset this book made me. And she went, well, tell you what, I've got some books here because she is like midwife trained and all that. And she gave me like these midwife books and she gave me like they had different techniques and stuff so I could take the things that made sense to me instead of,
right.
you know. And that helped a lot because I needed to really understand what was going on. But yeah, there is still a lot. I mean, there like I had nerve pain after, and I would go to the doctor and be like, I have this pain, and it started after I had my son, and I don't, it's uncomfortable. And they'd be like, oh, we're loose pants. I'm like, I'm not wearing tight pants. And it ends up I just needed a little bit of estrogen cream, but I had to get in my 40s before they allowed me to have access to that. So,
Yeah, see, that's probably what I needed too. I
yeah.
my thing was oh, it was relating so hard to what you just said about where they were like, oh, when I would go to stand up and I would feel like I was gonna stand up slower. How I, do you think I'm like leaping off the couch? Like, what do you think is happening?
What the hell?
Like, first of all, I
Stand-
have a messed up back, hips, and knees. Like, how fast do you think I'm standing?
Right.
Although now I know it's not just about the sitting, it's just me being still in general. Like stillness
Yeah.
is what is bad for me because I get the
Yeah.
feeling and all of that. Good.
I have like POTS like symptoms, but I don't have POTS. Like when they put me on the table, my body did weird shit and they went, we don't know what that is, but that's not POTS. And I figured out when I
Is it
started taking
orthostatic intolerance?
it's like they never gave me a diagnosis. I just figured out if I take ketotifen, which is it's
Yep.
a antihistamine that has the mast cells say properties that it helps because my heart goes bonkers when I'm standing if I don't take it. So,
So so I did that tilt table test too at the POTS clinic, and they kind of said the same thing. Like I didn't have a positive. They were like, "You're not positive for POTS, but you have some dysautonomia." Because
yeah.
and my thing was I wanted to move. They're like, "No, you have to be still." And I was like, I had started crying, I was sweating, I was having a reaction.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Hey, nurse lady, can you just punch me in the face and just get this over with? Knock me." And she was
Yeah.
like, No, I can't." And I was like, "Can you write that in the file that I asked you to? As like, please document that I am so miserable that I asked you to punch me in the
It
face.
was I felt like I was like I just wanted to like
You want to die."
like
I
yeah, it
wanted
was
I was
awful.
that was the only thing I could think to like because I was like so hot, but I was also cold, but I was sweaty, but I was shaking, but I was like, am I gonna throw up or poop?
Right.
Neither of those things are gonna happen. Can I just be unconscious? Like that's what
Right.
I wanted. Like I wanted to just like the people that actually pass out, I feel like, I mean, that's probably not good. I don't know. That's not good. But
It's better on the table where they're strapped down at least because they're safer.
right.
But yeah,
That and if
to
you're
me
if
the
you're
out,
unconscious in a way, you don't know that you feel like you want to die. Because
right?
that's what it feels like to me. Like when I was having that attack in Nashville, when I flew to see Luna, I remember being on like the hotel, like the cold bathroom, and I was like, I just want this to stop. Like I
Yeah,
want my heart rate to like pick a number, and I want
yeah.
either sweat or not.
Whatever my body does, it if I lay down, it goes away almost right away. And so like when it I the first couple of years when my chronic fatigue syndrome or whatever is wrong with
Yeah.
me was really severe, I couldn't drive or do any of that stuff. And so like if I went to the store, someone had to drive me. But a lot of times I ended up just laying down in the aisle in the middle of like Target or whatever because like I needed to. I needed to do that for certain and people come up and be like, "Oh, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I need to do this for a couple minutes and then I'll be able to get up." But it was like and then when I would get up, it's like I just felt like I just want to come out of my skin. I don't want to be in my body anymore. And
Do you know those toys where the fluid is going like this in it?
it was like the dye or oil or
Yeah,
whatever
like
so you can
yeah, and
see.
oil and water, and it's
Yeah.
I to me when you describe that, it makes me think of that, except the oil wants to leave the container, but it's
Yeah.
forced to stay. Ooh, that's my elbow. But it's being forced to stay. I've like I would want to
Yeah.
keep going, or like my insides. Sometimes when I have like a migraine or I feel real whoopee. I don't know what the, I feel like I'm like whoop, whoop, like my inside is
Yeah.
pulsating. Do you know what I'm talking about? Words are
Yeah.
not my friend right now.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's, I don't, the, like, some of the things the body do and then having words for it, it's so hard to like, because there's like so many things that are like sort of happening at the same time that the sensory experience is just like, sometimes I just go, it feels like I have like a lead blanket with spikes on it and like I can't breathe,
That's
because
what
I
I
don't.
started doing to describe, because that's the only way I know. My pain guy was asking me, he's like, well, is it nerve pain or muscular pain? And I'm like, yes. It was like both.
Yeah,
Or I have like, and you probably experienced this too. I have degenerative discs that do the impingements, but I also have other weird ligament stuff that puts pressure. So
yeah,
is it my spine, or like I don't know, it's actually causing the impingement that's
right.
making my back do its thing.
Yeah, I have like with my neck was sort of the first area to start doing that, and I have like stenosis, and so I have like the nerve stuff, and I've had ablation done, and there are like layers of things impacting. So these muscles are always like, "Rrr," and
Yeah.
that can pull things out, which can cause the impingement. But then the nerve stuff is why so it's like this feedback thing, and
Yes.
I can't do the ablation anymore because I started having facial numbness. But now I do the trigger point injections,
Analog.
and where they like the lidocaine. It's
I
sort
don't
of
know.
like,
Yeah. They do
and
them
it
like here.
has, yeah, they go all the way down to my glutes. So the whole thing every month. And been, it's not perfect, but I am in less pain than I was when I was 15 in some parts of my body because of it. And
That's
they want to fuse my neck. And I'm like, this is working for now. And sometimes, yeah, it pinches. And if I move the
which
wrong way,
did they want to do skull? Which
like
fusion?
C4 through C6, that area. And then he was like, well, because you have EDS, we would do that, but we would probably have to do the upper. And I was like, no, you would have to do the whole thing because I've had the upper go out where I couldn't hold my head up before. And I feel like if you tie down the bottom, the upper's just
Yeah,
gonna be like, whoo, you
that's
know?
yeah, that sounds really dangerous, actually.
Yeah. And I'm not I never, the stupidest shit that I have been through in my body, I've never, like when my neck went out, I didn't even go to the doctor. I was like, oh, if it doesn't get better in a week, I'll go to the doctor. And then it was like 2, 3 weeks, and I finally got my neck to pop back in on my own. And then it wasn't an issue anymore. But it was like, because my experience has been that most doctors, they're going to be like, take ibuprofen, wear a neck brace. I used to have a primary doctor that was a DO, and she would take 3 months off every year to travel somewhere and learn medicine in that place. And she did, when I first went to her, it's because I fell out of a tree and I knocked my jaw out of alignment, and I just needed someone to do the cranial sacral stuff to pop my jaw back in. And I went to a hippy dippy hospital, so they were like, "Oh, just go see a DO." So I went and found her, and she just looked at me, and she went, "Yeah, we can fix your jaw, but you are jacked up." Like, because I had had sciatica for years. Part of my leg was numb, and I was like 18 or 19. And she just looked at me. She's like, "You are jacked up." So she ended up getting like my hips aligned because my hips were like out over an inch, like forward and up. She
I'm
did
out. I just had a massage and my guy was like, "You're out of whack." And I'm like, I could feel it. And I'm
yeah.
still not right. Oh, that's
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah, so she helped me like learn how to kind of keep things in. She did this treatment called prolotherapy, which in some other countries they use it. Like if you tear a ligament, they'll do the
Yeah,
prolotherapy to help the ligament strengthen and regrow a little bit. And so
I've
she
heard
did
of
that
that.
to create like a sort of like a scarification on the bone above the ligaments that seemed to be loose. She wasn't sure if they were loose or torn because of course we didn't know about EDS. So it helped.
Then it'll like scar tissue attach itself and fix.
It's yeah, it like kind of just sits on the bone and then it so it stopped things from moving up over. It was like a almost like a bumper
A
for
little
the
barrier.
yeah, and it so my hips would stay and then when it wore off, we'd have to do it again. But I stopped having sciatica, I stopped having like all these other issues. But
How
I learned
often do you get
um
therapy?
I haven't had prolotherapy since she hasn't been my doctor since my 20s, and I haven't found another doctor that does
So like,
that.
what's the
But
window?
I think it was like I think we did it 2 or 3 times in the 3 or 4 years that I worked with her.
Oh, okay. So it's not
So
like an every month.
no, and we she did do like multiple before it really stuck. And then when it I had the benefit, it lasted about 5 years that things kind of like stayed settled for me. And if I could find a doctor like her again, I absolutely would, but I haven't had much luck finding DOs that um, are that thorough that take insurance, right? Because that was part of why I stopped seeing her. She stopped taking insurance, but she taught me to have higher expectations of doctors than I had ever had. Because if I called her and said I was in pain, she saw me that day, like, and she would adjust me. And she had hired a new receptionist, and she said, if this patient calls and she says she's in pain, she's in more pain than you have ever been in, and I will see her, even if she has to come to my house, like, period. And I will fire you if you don't fit her in. Like, so when I, once she stopped seeing patients, it was like, oh, where do I find another doctor like this, Um, but she was amazing and she kind of opened the door for me to learn about my body stuff. I never had like the EDS understanding, but I was already kind of doing the things like I have like exercise I do to help balance my hips and stuff like
Yeah.
that because she was like, well, these things are not staying where they should, and here's ways that you can help, you know. Um, yeah, so it's like I learned early on how to kind of hear my body and manage it. So I learned how to pop my back in or my ribs in when they would go out, and you know,
How old were you the first time you remember popping something back in?
I don't know. I
I just
never
remember,
had any
I
kind
just
of
remember my
like,
pinky being like, I mean, it was like this way, and I was like, "That's not right." And I went,
yeah,
I
for me
was like,
it's always been my
"Oh,
back and my ribs. I've never done like I've broken fingers and toes in ways that are not like instead of breaking bones, I like the ligaments do
get
things
sprains and
instead.
strains." Yeah,
Yeah, so I have
I've
like
never
things
broken
like
a
that.
bone
Yeah,
ever. I've had
I
so many bad It's like I'm so stretchy that it's the wickedest. They were like, "You would have been better off breaking this shit."
right? That's what I've learned through all the damage that I've done over the years is that the broken bone is easier than the because they don't do anything for soft tissue damage.
No,
Like I got
no,
hit by
they
a
just
car and they
stabilize
were
it, and they're
like,
like, "Good luck."
"Yep, exactly." It's crazy. The our medicine is so barbaric still. Like it's just,
What's
there are
funny?
things that are better, like some of the cancer stuff is a little better, but a lot of the body stuff is just not it's not there yet.
No, no.
Like,
And then when I think about all the studies that they do and the drugs that they test, and it's like on men, and
okay,
it gets women,
so
and I'm like,
yeah, that the men thing and the
"What
bladder
the fuck?"
earlier thing, the lidocaine in the urethra for catheters and stuff like that, they pretty much only do it for men because the study for the lidocaine for catheters was only done on men. And so it's not recommended to use lidocaine. So if you ever need a catheter while you're awake, tell them you want the lidocaine shit they use on men if they don't offer it
Yeah,
because like they just like I have a friend
they
that
know
she's
women have urethras, right?
right, like there's a reason why UTI is hurt and it's not just the bladder, but
Oh my
it's
God.
Yeah, I have a friend that she is going into, they're trying to do like a visual scope thing in her bladder and they're not
Oh, is that
offering her any
the
numbing stuff. And she's like, it's really because she had a hysterectomy and then she had like a prolapse since they did, she's been having a lot of pain since then. And they're like, she's traumatized. And they're like, and I'm like, ask them for the lidocaine stuff. Because when I had the scope for my bladder, they at Stanford, they do the lidocaine stuff.
yeah.
So I was just like, I don't like, I don't under, I don't, it hurts my brain.
I don't,
How
especially
is,
when you think about the cost. Like anesthesia, that doesn't cost much money. Like to
right. Yeah.
yeah,
It's,
we are. We're like sadists. Or
yeah. The
whatever.
blind spot for other people's pain is just, I don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I don't
I mean,
understand that either. I also don't understand this kind of goes back to the same mentality we were talking about earlier. I don't understand the people who are like, well, I suffered, so you have to suffer too. I'm like, I suffered. I don't want anyone to suffer. Like,
right.
here's what I learned from my suffering. Now you don't have to suffer. Like, I don't want anybody to go through.
Exactly.
Like, why do you think I'm sharing my why? Oh, you talk about all of your stuff. Yeah, because nobody thought I had any of these things.
Right.
Look at how much better my life is now that I know how my brain works. That's why I'm sharing this information.
Exactly. Those are like that. I don't, yeah, like when someone said, like if I post something and someone says, that they can relate to that, I'm like, I hate that you've had experiences that allow you to relate to this, but I also appreciate the fact that I'm not alone. It's like because I don't want other people to suffer. I wouldn't, even the people that I hate the most on this planet, I would not wish what I'm going through on them. It's just,
No,
you know, it's not fun. Like,
no.
yeah, people who are like, yeah, that whole like, "Oh, well, I had it worse, or if it was people, I don't really get it. Like, it's like if you don't, if
I paid this. Why? I don't want any, like the whole like people
yeah,
getting their loans forgiven. Not to mention, like if they actually did math, they would see that they, whatever. Anyway,
yeah,
like
it's like if people don't have to suffer something, why, why should they have to? Like, let's not. Things change. Let's be glad they change. Yes, it sucks sometimes when we don't get the benefit of that change, but you know. Let's be happy that other
I
people
love
don't have to.
there are people in the world I love who will benefit from it. Like I'm
Exactly.
always trying to like look like anyway.
Yeah.
Um, I found bubbles that were catnip bubbles today. Have you ever found
Oh,
catnip bubbles?
I haven't played with them, but I have seen them.
I went today. I went out my with my friend Lori today. I haven't bought wrapping paper in I don't know how many years. Like 1 year, 20 years ago, I went after Christmas and I guess I bought 8,000 rolls of wrapping paper. And I finally ran out of wrapping paper. And I'm not, we're not huge, big gift givers, but I do need to wrap a few things. So I was like, I have to go
I
shop it.
use paper bags and stuff. Like
I love that,
I'm
but we don't have paper bags. We have like the reuse, like, but I always love that. Or newspaper. Like, I loved
yeah. I
gifts
miss
wrapped
the when the
funny.
newspaper. Yeah. We
Yeah,
don't we don't have those anymore.
I know. What is journalism? But we went to Five Below because they had some, and I found some really cute. Like, this is some Nightmare Before Christmas wrapping paper. But they had catnip bubble.
Oh, nice. Have you tried it?
I haven't. The girls are, it's a little, I don't want to get them wound up now because Alice is always sleepy, but Dinah's over here being a little sleepy girl. So
Yeah. Yeah, I have like catnip I'll put like when it's time to vacuum. So like earlier in the day, we'll put it down on the carpet and let them like
leave
roll
it.
around in it. But like Braga will just be like, he's super chill, but Amos is like a monster. He's just
We like tear through the house and then like
Oh, he just attacks Brago. It's poor Brago. It's like there's a lot of like leave Brago alone going on in the house during the day. And Bird TV was working for about a week, but now Amos doesn't care about the Bird TV anymore. But Brago loves it, so he'll be trying to watch the Bird TV, and you'll hear him get super indignant, and it's because Amos is trying to wrestle with him while he was like, "But the birds!" Like
what is Brago older? How much older?
he's like 10 or so, but he's always been late. He's never
Bit an old
played.
soul kind of.
Yeah, he had a rough, he was feral for the 6 month for 6 months. So he has things,
I
he's
think
on
I remember that
Prozac. He's
happening.
got,
Yeah.
yeah. And Amos is just, he's a control. So we got, for my birthday, my ex-mother-in-law got me this toy for Amos. That it's like an automated ball that moves around randomly and makes noise. And you can even set it to only move if they touch it. So it's kind of
Right.
interesting. And his way of playing with it is to pick it up and hold it so it can't move anymore. And he drops it in enclosed spaces where he can control it. And then when he's done with it, he brings it over to me and drops it by me. And then he's like mad at it because it won't stop moving. So I've turned it off. But he plays with it for about a half an hour, but he's literally just like controlling it the entire time. He is,
That is a smart cat.
yeah, he's a control freak, big time. Like tries to make us walk where he
Hey, Catherine
wants. And yeah,
likes
I'm
things.
glad
Got
he's been
his
sit.
rigid ways.
Yeah. I always give him when I pick him up and he won't look at me, I'm like, you're so autistic. Like,
So when we were having Carolyn evaluated, one of the pre-questions they asked me, they were like, "Well, when Carolyn was younger, did you ever like notice that she wouldn't look at you when you were talking?" And I was like, "Well, I wasn't really looking at her, so I don't know."
I've never thought like if they asked me that, I'd be like, I never thought because
What
like
I said, I was like, "Well, you know," I was like, "You're asking me about when she was younger." So she, at the time, Carolyn was 17 when they were asking me this. Carolyn's 19 now. But I was like, um, I don't really look at people. Like I have my trained, like I have my routine of how I look at people.
right.
So does Carolyn do that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I realized through learning about the stuff that because when I was younger, I my friends would comment on the fact that I never looked at them when we were talking. Like I was most comfortable just doing something on my phone or before phones doing like work like playing or coloring or
Yep.
whatever. And then like just talking. And I realized that if I'm not comfortable with somebody, I look at their face. I'm not looking in their eyes. They might think I am, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And I'm actually spending a lot of energy trying to listen to them while my brain is thinking about what I'm looking at.
Right.
And if I feel comfortable, I relax and do whatever where I don't feel that pressure and then I can be really
Right.
present, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah. So I don't like with I wouldn't even just, yeah. Oh, before we forget, because, sometimes, I don't want to forget, I do the patron exclusive question. We should do it now so
Okay,
that
yeah, because I'm
it's
getting
done.
sleepy.
Yeah. So, let me grab a pen. I need three numbers from you between 1 and 3001.
A few moments later.
Oh, my stitch
I'm
is just
ready.
really itchy.
Oh,
I'm just
that's
gonna
so
put,
I still have a piece of stitch in my toe, like from my toe
oh,
surgery. They pulled all of it out, but it's like my skin healed so quickly that it's like just there. And I'm like, it'll push out eventually, but every now and again it like,
I just having to put pressure on it to like, because I can't like scratch it. But oh,
yeah,
they come out on Friday, a little earlier than
nice.
I would have expected, but they had pre-scheduled me for an appointment. Like I'm going to be in South Carolina cat sitting for my mom. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be in town, but I really want these
Yeah,
out before I leave because I don't get back till January 13th. So
right. That's a long time to have them in.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, when
Okay.
I had the I had the other one, they left the stitches in an extra long time because the toe it has so much pressure that they and then when I came in, she's like, "Oh, you're a really fast healer. We probably should have taken the it's this is it was I was like it was very painful, sweaty." She's like, you can swear at me. It's fine. I love that doctor. She's so
I was
like big
I was
AD
glad they took these
like
out while I was under for this because it had started growing over also. That's actually I'm kind
yeah.
of glad they're taking these out sooner because now I've got a weird anyway. Are you
Yeah.
ready for my numbers?
Yes.
A few moments later.
I like how you were doing like these sort of like elegant model poses while you were thinking about
Is that what I was
the
doing? I
numbers.
don't even know what I was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, you totally
Oh,
were.
I'm glad they you described them as elegant model poses because I feel like I think well, you'll tell me or we'll watch on the playback. I think I have some weird movements like my grandmother had. And so I'm wondering if I'm having like some dystonia shit now,
Hmm.
just because but I've always moved around a lot. I think that's how I get words out.
Yeah, I don't sit still while I need to, even if like that's part of why Amos doesn't like sitting on me. And I think
Yeah.
the gaming has helped because I sit, but my legs are constantly like it just, I think the ADHD for me, that's where it comes from. So I just need some kind of, you know.
I'm
Okay,
glad you
so
said that because that's a whole thing. I think the dysautonomia, I always have to move, is actually ADHD. They're like,
yeah,
anyway, because I feel
it's like
better when I take my stimulant. When my stimulant wears off,
so I have been doing some reading and their dopamine plays a role with the stabilization of mast cells and they
hmm
haven't quite gotten to the point where the science is really there yet, but there is sort of this like early understanding. And so treating the ADHD with medications that helps with the dopamine because literally
helps
most of
with
my
mast cell
symptoms were like
stabilization.
80% better like and I since then it's all been coming back since I stopped my meds so like and I think that there is like it's all tied together.
Yeah, the when I take my stimulant and an H1 and H2 blocker regularly every day, much I feel and adding the H2 blocker was the piece. I didn't realize I needed Pepsid like I did because I
Yeah,
don't get heartburn here, but I was having it helped my lower GI more than I thought. And I had way
yeah,
more internal inflammation that the Zyrtec treated that I didn't know that I had because I didn't think I was allergic to stuff.
right, because the way that our bodies can show allergies is actually much more variable than we've been
And
led
the
to
commercials
understand.
just always just show people outside with flowers.
Right. And I don't have springtime. I'm allergic to mold and I react to I haven't actually been able to narrow down except for preservatives and allium. Those are like my big things. But
Yeah,
otherwise, I sometimes just feel like my body does those things in response to stress or whatever, and it's not really the ingredient. So the
yeah.
Pepsid is a big one, and then the ketotifen. And when I can get my ADHD meds again, I believe that I will be feeling the betters.
And I think what you just said was key. So now that I have general control over my mast cells, those stress triggers don't send me to the moon like
Yes,
they used to because I'm down here and not up here.
exactly. And that was like when I got on the other meds, the ketotifen and the Pepsid was like something I figured out myself because and they tested me. I didn't have reflux, but my stomach would hurt. And I was the Pepsid was the only thing that helped, and that was what made my GI go, well, I think you're right that it might be like a mast cell thing. So let's do this. And then let's try the ketotifen. And that's helped my heart stuff and that feeling that I was gonna faint when I stood up.
Yeah.
Um, but it wasn't until I got on the ADHD meds, about 6 months in, I was like, I can stand and paint. I still have to sit sometimes, but I'm not crashing like I used to. I can get angry at Dave and I don't have a flare where I have to be on a liquid diet for 2 days.
hmm
And I can just do a little more and that I felt more robust. intolerant of things in my environment. And then after I stopped the meds, it stayed for a while. And it wasn't really until I was in the RV that it had like, and that was
Yeah.
about almost a year later. So I'm obviously
That was
very motivated to,
stressful.
yeah, it was so much like, I just like, and I think there's so much we don't know, and I'm really hoping I can start to find doctors that can be more present with what I'm trying to do. Like if I'm like, this helps
How you
me, I
both
hope,
be on the same page with like where you're going with this.
yeah, because my GI basically went, we don't have a mast cell specialist at Stanford, and I don't know how else to help you. So you could go see this guy in Berkeley, but he's not in Stanford, and I get financial assistance at Stanford. I literally can't afford to go to this other guy. So, I'm thinking about looking at UCSF and see if they have somebody there. It sounds like their neurodivergent department is also more open to like doing adult autism stuff as well. So,
Yeah.
whereas Stanford doesn't, they're like, you're not high needs enough. So, you
How do they
know,
do that? Like,
he didn't ask me any
how do you know what
questions.
my needs
So
are?
yeah, I'm like, why don't you ask me what it was like at my last job and then we'll discuss it. You know, like
Yes,
it
I
was
can do
weird.
all of these complicated brain tasks and find random fraud that you wouldn't think there, but I can also stand in front of my refrigerator and like not remember what my name is.
Right? Yeah. And I've
So,
like, it asked me how my social life is, or, when I was younger, I wouldn't go to people's houses because it smelled like cat box, or, like I was really good at avoiding things because I knew the sensory experience was going to be a problem for me. And I didn't know. I would go somewhere, smell like cat box, and I'd be like, how come nobody else is talking about this? Like, I can't breathe. Like,
I thank thank you. There's not just anything in general. Like I'm
right.
like, why don't people just freaking have do you know how many problems would be solved if you just said words?
But one of the things I learned is that when people go into situations where there's like an uncomfortable noise or smell, they notice it and then they get used to it, and it's no longer a sensory thing anymore for them. And for autistic people, it becomes increasingly more noticeable. Like we go the
Yeah,
opposite.
the opposite.
Yeah. And
So
yeah, but I still told people, I'm like, hey, you have mold somewhere in your house. I can smell it. My face is reacting to it. My nose is running. And I would help them find it. Like I'm that person, and it would end up, it'd be like their shower towel or like the bath mat or something like that. And so my friends kind of just got used to the fact I was going to come in and tell them what smell was off so that they could problem solve it. Like,
I I I don't have I do have my smelling is pretty sensitive, but I'm a sound person. I will hear the highest pitch like way off. No one will hear like they're like, "What are you talking about?" And then I'll like turn everything else off, and they were like, "How did you hear that?" I'm like, "That's all
yeah.
me."
Right? So for me it's actually everything except for I have mid-range hearing loss, which is a rare version type of neurological
Mid
hearing
range.
loss. And mid-range, it's called
Like
cookie bite. So I miss certain, so I hear all the really annoying sounds really well, and I don't hear voices very well. Um
that's the
and
worst.
it's so rude. Like, if I have water running or something, somebody could be talking and I won't know because I can't, but I can hear like the bass from the neighbors walking around through everything because my
I
hearing is,
hear.
yeah. So my hearing is actually exceptionally good everywhere except for where I have the loss. They were like, yeah, you have like a kid's hearing basically in terms of sensitivity. And I was like, awesome.
Great.
Thanks. But I am getting an MRI on Friday. They're looking at my ears. So, because my hearing loss is asymmetrical, which is abnormal, and sometimes
Yeah,
they
that's a
so they yeah, so they want to see if there's a cyst or a tumor or whatever. It would be a benign tumor in there. My
Yeah.
guess is it's not, and I'm just special, but we'll see.
Well, you got to just keep the like weird coming. I mean, you can't
Right?
your gallbladder problem and not have something new come up. Come on.
I know. And I'm going to see a plastic surgeon because my nose is tired. The cartilage in my nose is tired. So I now have a deviated septum, which I never had before. And my sinuses collapse when I breathe through my nose when I'm trying to sleep. So they thought I had apnea. But when they test me, I did not. And it ends up that it's just my fucking, it's probably the EDS impacting my nose, right? So they
Yeah.
want to do surgery to like fix all of that. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna learn about it and I'm gonna see like what's that like? Because is like what happens when my nose gets tired when I'm older? Does it become like more of an issue or does this correct it
Yeah.
in a way that's not compounding? Or I need more input because it's I mean, how weird I need to get surgery on my nose because my cartilage is not strong enough. Like it's so fucking weird.
Our bodies are,
Lemon bodies. It's just, yeah.
I'm impressed I made it this far. It literally is. I'm like the healthiest sick person.
Exactly. I love when people are like, "Oh, you look so healthy." And I'm like, "Well, I'm glad I wear sick well." Like, you know, like I'm
Yeah.
an asshole sometimes because I know I shouldn't say that and I do it anyways because I'm not sorry.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like goes, man,
Yeah.
let's do the number.
Let's do some. Okay.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
And I'm
Yeah.
way more mobile now since my hip is fixed. So,
That's good. Yeah, I getting my hip fixed back in the day was nice because I had gotten to the point that like because I used to walk a minimum of 5 miles a day and then it got where my hip would I'd get about half mile in and then my hip I couldn't do the front to back step anymore. It would catch and wouldn't move anymore.
uh-huh.
So that's why they did the repair. And now I have a tear on my left side, which for the most part it's the inflammation's down, so my mobility is better. But they're like, "Oh, let's do PT." And I'm like, why can't we just fix it like the other side, you know?
You're not strong enough.
Because like if it yeah, like if it gets it's just gonna keep getting damaged. So let's just,
Yeah. That's
but
I just had some imaging on my left. The tear on my left isn't as bad as the one. I mean, the one on my right, like if it was a clock, it was like from 12, 3 o'clock. It was like 1/4. They're like, we were poking it to check stability, and we were like, nah, maybe we don't want to poke it. I was
did
reading
they
surgical notes. I
did
have
they
three.
like how did they
They went in arthroscopically, so I have like three little scars, and then they kind of like popped my thing. They cleaned up around the joint. Like my bone was generally good, but the tear was huge. So
yeah,
they put in three. I have like three thingies in there now, anchoring
okay.
it, and
They Yeah, they did the three. So I have the three scars, and then they popped my hip out, did the cleanup, but he reattached my labrum with like an anchor, and apparently it was an absorbing leg anchor, which nobody told me. So every time I go to the MRI, I'm like, well, I have an anchor or a screw or something in there. And they looked it up and they were like, no, there's nothing in there now. So they apparently sometimes they use ones that absorb over time. And
so
I'm
I think
like,
I have three permanent things, but they're not because I asked if it was going to set off stuff, and they're like, it won't set off any type of like metal detectors, but it's some other type of synthetic material. I probably should read more
yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I wish I
Now
had
that I'm
those
now
because
that
it
I'm
was
saying those words out loud, I'm like, oh, I have shit in my body that I don't really understand. But you know
yeah,
what? I can walk, so
it's good. Yeah, I guess my femur bone had a ridge on the top, like I had a little mohawk, and so that
oh,
was part of what was causing the damage, and so they smoothed all that out. And I was like, well, what about my left side? And then that never it just didn't. That was when I first went on the liquid diet, and it took me a really long time to heal because I had malnutrition and stuff. So it was just,
Yeah.
yeah. But
I scared Dinah, so
oh.
that's why I made that face. I feel like there's our kitty, Dinah.
Aw, so
And
cute.
then
Here, I'll show you Amos since
there's
we're
Alice.
aw.
Oh, Amos. Oh,
Oh yeah, show me your shirt. I know you mentioned it in the beginning, and
oh,
then
it's
I didn't really get to. That's funny. I don't have that. All mine is like mostly
that
like,
I have those. Those are the two. I don't have those two. I'm a 7 out of 9. Those are the two that I don't have, but it's the most recognizable one.
yeah, that's like when they would go to
Tiffany did
test
this
me, and I was like, I
design.
don't
We're
have
actually
it.
going to be, these are going to be on our website soon,
Nice.
I think. I don't know.
I
We're,
like that I don't like shirts that have the collar, so I like that it has the scoopy, but it's not a V either because I don't like those either. So
I used to really like V-necks, and then I realized I like scoop and a boat neck is what,
yeah,
because,
yep.
which common with autistic people.
I
Not
have a
one.
friend who he's got to be neurodivergent, but he says he's not, and that's fine. And I'm not, I'm not gonna, but all of his shirts, he stretches them. So all his t-shirts hang way down here. And I'm like, yep. Plus, like when we worked together, I had to translate all of his emails to our manager because the way that he forms sentences is very like it's almost like proper English. Like he languages really differently. And it's like, and so I understand him. I'm really good at like figuring, I can talk to people like English isn't, and I just figure it out, but like other people could never understand him. And so my manager would be like, "Hey, can you translate his email for me?" And then they started joking that I should have a certification in Paul plus plus because, you know, it was like this whole thing, and just his brain is wired very uniquely, and he is one of my favorite people. So he can say whatever he wants, but
That's, I always tended to have, when I was working, the jobs where I was like not a middleman, but kind of like I helped people understand shit. I guess that's just
mm,
what I'm supposed to do.
that's my yeah, that's
Like it would be
I
like, no, you
yeah.
don't understand what they're trying to say this. Or when I worked for the tech company, before I went government, I was a contractor, and our contract with the EPA, I was the functional support, like I was a super user on the software. I wasn't a coder, but I understood it. And I
Mhm.
understood how the programmers worked. You gotta, there's a special way you deal with them. Because
Yeah.
not like the end users who would call. I don't let those
Yes.
talk
I
to.
like I got hired for jobs where I had no experience, but they went, you have some tech experience, so you can learn to code or whatever." And it
Yeah.
ends up I can't code. Like my brain can't take the blank canvas and build it, but if you give me code, I can read it, I will very quickly understand it, and I can debug it. So I ended up in this position where they hired me to do one thing, but I ended up understanding the system so well that they would have me find the bugs, but I also ended up writing documentation on how to
That,
install the system because the engineers didn't know. They all worked on different pieces of it. I was the only one that really,
you had the
and
whole picture.
so I did the documentation that ended up becoming the tool so that they could sell the software and allow the companies to install it so that they didn't have to handhold with the companies anymore. Like,
That's badass, Leigh.
yeah, and I was like, okay. But
That's pretty much like what I did, but on a smaller scale for that software that the EPA used to run their back 25 years ago.
yeah, I
For years.
just always accidentally ended up doing so much more than I was hired for, but it kept me happy because as soon as I ran out of stuff, I would get
I would be like, I'm done. Can I leave? No, we have to work
I'd be
40
like
hours.
ADHD
I
depressed.
already
I'd
did
be like
5,000 hours of work. I've done more work than these 15 people over here.
That job, they actually were like, if you did your work, you were good. And I love my job so much that I would just be there to help out. And my manager was like, yeah, you're gonna go to, or I'd ask like for a vacation day, and he'd be like, we're gonna comp you that day because you work a lot.
Right.
Like, but they made the mistake of laying me off like a month before I vested. And this is the story of my life. Everything has worked out that way. But so they laid me off, and my computer never connected to the network, right? So it didn't back up my drive. And I put a note on there. It said, do not wipe the drive, because one, it has some of my stuff on there, and I wasn't able to get it off because I didn't know I was going to be laid off. So, and then the other was that the stuff I did has not been backed up properly. I put the note on there,
Yeah.
and I always had this issue with I worked in IT before that. The IT guy always acted like I didn't know what I was talking about. So he ignored the note. They wiped the drive. They lost all the work I did. And my manager, he goes, I have no right to ask this, but is there any way that you have that at home on your computer or whatever? And I was like, no. And he went, all right, it's on them. And they lost the contract because the upper management didn't like me. Everybody else like my manager loved me. He didn't want me to go. Everybody else did, but that upper management guy, I didn't defer to him correctly. And it
Yeah.
had been
Didn't like adhere to his hierarchy bullshit, probably.
and yeah, and I was the only female on that team, and my coworkers would actually you argue with him about stuff related to because he would be complaining, and they're like, "But she gets her work done. She's really good." And he's like, "But she didn't blah blah blah." And they're like, "That's not important." Like, so he
It's like,
was
but she has brown curtains at her house, and I don't like that.
right. It's just like
Who
I
cares?
didn't I didn't look at him the right. I don't nobody ever told me what I had never learned about these social graces in a corporate environment. I had no exposure to it. Like I didn't grow up around people that worked in corporations. I didn't know until later in my life looking back, and I went, "Oh, yeah, I was probably like just too casual." But I didn't know, you know? Like nobody
Yeah,
said
and also like just telling you, oh well, he doesn't like I would need someone to be like, okay, in this corporate environment, the head honcho is sometimes a dickbag who needs you to be like, oh, to his face. It's
Yeah, or call him
shit.
sir or
Just do
something. But
that, or yeah, and all is fine.
yeah,
Like,
but for
just
me,
give me
like
that conversation.
right, that casualness has actually inspired trust in my work environments.
Yeah.
Like pretty quick, I've been hired for jobs that I have no experience, but because I was so blunt, they felt like they could trust me, and then I was really good at the job. So it was like when I ran into probably the because literally everybody at that job was like there's the guy that drank Dr. Pepper, had a peanut butter sandwich and carrot sticks every day, and he built a wall, and he had different color socks, and he always had purple hair. And like that was my work environment. I loved it, of course, like so that guy wasn't like that. And that's, you know, yeah. But so they did get they they lost the contract, so it's okay. But
Hey, Leigh, I'm about to pee my pants,
me
and I've learned
too.
that I should pee when I feel like I should pee.
I have learned to respect my need to pee as well. So yes,
And it's like
let's
11:30 my time, so I'm
yeah,
like
go get some pee action and then go get some
about to
sleep action.
be a pumpkin. I'm gonna try
Yep.
to sleep. I had so
Well,
much fun.
me too. Thank you for working with my weird scheduling stuff. We will do this again in the future, and I know you'll post, but let me know when season 3 gets started. So
Yes, I was actually just telling the girls, I don't know what else, the pod, our text group chat's called pod. I was telling the pod today, I'm planning to release it on January 31st, 2025, which is actually turns out to be the 3-year anniversary of the spicy accountant video that where Luna and I like met.
yeah,
It's kind
that
of funny.
was yeah, that was. And if you when we record again someday in the future, you have to talk about the Luna
Oh,
stuff because I that was one of the things I wanted to ask about because it's such a cool story, but like we'll do that again in the future.
yeah, that's a long story. I feel like
Yeah,
Luna needs to be here for that too.
definitely. We could totally do that.
We'll make sure she's not burnt out. We need to get her.
Yeah,
This winter's hard for everybody. So,
it
oh my God,
is.
I still have to pee and I'm still talking. Okay. Okay. I'm just
Okay.
gonna hang up so I do it. Otherwise,
Just do it. Okay.
if I keep this Irish goodbye. Okay, goodbye.
All right. Bye.
Oh, no, really, leave meeting. Click, click.
First.
Okay.
Thank you for hanging out and listening. A huge thank you to my patrons. I could not do this without you. Want to support my creative chaos and get access to exclusive content? Check out my Patreon. Have questions and or interested in joining me for a conversation? Email me.